Good morning. I'm Reverend C.C. Coltrane, and I'm so glad to be back with you all. It feels like I've been gone for a long time. If this is your first time here, thank you, and we're glad you're sharing your morning with us today. At Center for Spiritual Living, our mission is to be a community of love that supports people in experiencing real transformation. If you're new or if your contact information has changed at all, would you please fill out that little tear-off strip on your bulletin cover and drop it at the Welcome Center or in the offering basket as it comes around. It will help us stay in touch with you. Let's see, this morning, Lana Mayhew will be giving our reading and invocation. And our vigil holder is Linda Smith. And Lana and Linda Andriaco will offer our interfaith candle lighting, which reminds us that wisdom comes from many sources and that all the paths that we draw from lead to the same place, the source. And the kids today are with Carol Huseman. There she is. Yay! As our kids make their way over to Carol, let's just bless them quickly, remembering that they are the place that God shows up clearly because they haven't gathered all the baggage that we have. And so we just look to them to remind us of the joy of life, of the clarity of the life force moving through us. And we bless them, knowing nothing but good and more good for them today. And giving thanks, we just let it be so. And so it is. Have a wonderful day, you guys.
They are having fun.
Oh my God, they're so cute.
They're on the third step of science mind treatment.
Oh, cool. On the third step of spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer today. How wonderful. It's a Veterans Day today, and it's also 6 years since my father, a veteran, passed away. So it's a special day for being grateful. I'm very grateful for my father, but I'm also grateful to everyone who has participated in protecting the rest of us. You know, most of us will never know what it is like to be willing to put everything on the line. And so I'm grateful for those of you who did. And let's just keep in our hearts today gratitude and honor for all those veterans amongst us. There is an invitation in your bulletin today to join me beginning Wednesday, November 28th, and to invite your friends. It's a new Wednesday night service. It's a discussion and practice format. And it's really designed to move us from this consciousness of separation and them and us and opposition to a new consciousness of seeing all the parts of life coming together in new ways. I've been doing a lot of reading and study, both on the mystics, but also in history and psychology, about being able to see this reorganization of the world that we're in the midst of in a different way. And so I hope you'll join me beginning Wednesday at November 28th at 7 p.m. You can call me if you have any questions about it, but take this little invitation to remind you. It'll be an ongoing thing, so you can come any Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Then 2 days after that, Friday, November 30, come and help us make the place pretty for the holidays. We always have a really good time. It gets kind of crazy. People wearing tinsel and, hanging Christmas balls from their ears and noses and things. But it's really fun, so please join us for that. What? Nothing.
Protecting his nose.
Oh, okay.
Checking his nose.
Tomorrow, please keep our beloved Kenny in your prayers for, he's having one of his eyes fixed. So let's just know that it's perfect outcome, divine guidance for all concerned, and that he walks through it like, no problem. Just
I'll stop walking into walls.
Yeah. Just keep Kenny in your thoughts and prayers tomorrow morning. He will be great.
There you go, Kenny.
He will be great. And also, before I sit down again and we have some more music, I just want to remind you that our practitioners are here to pray with you after the service. You can talk to any one of the people in the teal or white stoles if there's something that you're struggling with or you can't quite see clearly. They're trained and experienced in seeing the spiritual truth even when we can't, and they are amazingly powerful people. So they give you this gift on Sundays after the service with their deep love, so take advantage of it. Now it's time for, is this that midday satsang song? Oh, I love it. It's called This Life is for You.
We light the first candle to honor Buddhism. Let us vow to open ourselves to the abundance of life. We may be grateful for all our days here, there, and everywhere. Let us vow to forgive all hurt caused by ourselves and others, and to never condone hurtful ways. We light the second candle to honor Hinduism. They who give have all things. They who withhold have nothing. We light the third candle to honor Christianity. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. We light the fourth candle to honor Native American religions. Looking behind, I am filled with gratitude. Looking forward, I am filled with vision. Looking upwards, I am filled with strength. Looking within, I discover peace. We light the fifth candle to honor Judaism. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And on this law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. And all that he does, he prospers. We light the sixth candle to honor Taoism. Open the doors of abundance, have plenty flow about me and fill me. Let my abundance be great, make it flow to me with ease and beauty. We light the seventh and final candle to honor Maori spirituality. May clarity be yours, may understanding be yours, through reflection, through personal endeavor, through respect, the virtues which bind us together as one, may we be filled with well-being. The reading today is from Ernest Holmes. Freedom from fear and error thinking, fear and punishment. The world is too largely governed by fear. There is no doubt that this is true, and we should do something about it. What I mean is that each one of us should analyze his own thinking to determine what is wrong, and replace every fear with faith and confidence. For in the act of prayer and meditation, we commune with the invisible spirit. We draw its strength, its peace, and its serenity into our own souls. So if you can just take these words for a few minutes into that contemplation. So for I'm knowing right here and right now that God's infinite energy and love and power and presence is right where we are. We are standing with the love and the light and the power and the presence of God that indwells within every cell of our body, within every ounce of our being. We are connected to that allness of God right here and right now. And so I know that everything is in divine order and divine right action with this service, with the music ministry, with Reverend Cece, and with the Children's Church and all of the congregation. And so I know that everything is how it should be. And together we say, and so it is.
So it's so perfect. November's theme is freedom from fear and error thinking. And that is something that every spiritual tradition and every mystic and every great teacher of the past tells us is in our minds. Fear is in our minds. Error thinking is in our minds. It's what's in our minds, our thoughts, our beliefs. That's what causes us to live in fear and upset and anger and distress. And once we free ourselves from those beliefs, our thought patterns and our errors in thinking resolve, and we can move then courageously through life doing what we're here to do. They all say that. And I tell you, I've thought a lot about this, particularly during the last week, which I'm going to tell you about. I think the biggest error we make, particularly those of us in the West, but it's everywhere. The biggest error humans make is thinking we're separate from each other. We're separate from all creation. We're separate from the Holy One. That we're individuals rather than waves on this great ocean of being. And we're afraid because we think we're all alone against the world. We're all alone in this universe. And yet that's not what any spiritual teacher. I'm just pausing to think. Well, there probably have been a few, but they were teachers. They were teachers of power politics, not spirituality. The founders of all the religions told us that. The mystics of all the religions told us that. The deep practitioners of all spiritual traditions have told us that we're all part of this one. We're all part of this one that we call creation, or God, or spirit, or whatever we call it. And I just came back from this amazing conference called the Parliament of the World's Religions. It's the second time I've been. And this oneness was a huge theme there. It was the theme, carrying through the whole thing. It's an interfaith and social action organization that held its first meeting in 1893 in Chicago. And one of the amazing things that happened there, it was originally designed sort of as a conference for those who were trying to teach Christianity to the heathens. But they had a surprise guest, Swami Vivekananda, who on his own dime came to Chicago and asked to speak, and they gave him space. And he stood up and spoke, and he really opened up for the West Eastern religious traditions, particularly Hinduism. And one of the best things he said was, he began his talk, sisters and brothers. Not brothers and sisters, not my fellow humans, sisters and brothers. He spoke to the oneness right out the get-go. And changed everything about the Parliament of World Religions. They didn't meet for another 100 years. But they met in 1993 again in Chicago, and since then they've met 5 times. Cape Town, South Africa, Barcelona, Melbourne, Australia, Salt Lake City, which was interesting, and Toronto. And I went to Salt Lake City, and I just got back from Toronto, and I hope I never miss another one of these meetings. It's a spectacular event. It's like 10,000 people from all around the world, from every religious tradition you can imagine, from indigenous religions to mainstream Christianity to Buddhism and Hinduism and Sikhism and Jainism and Chao Dai, the religions of the Far East. Coming together, these people come together to learn how to be in community with each other and how to learn from each other. It's truly an amazing event, and there's so much to do. You know, any hour you can be in one of 100 places. It's rather exhausting, but wonderful, wonderful. And so, you know, I will keep you apprised as soon as I know when the next one is and where the next one is, so you can start saving your pennies, because I'd love to have a whole bunch of us go together. It's an amazing experience. And one of the really, truly powerful days for me was the one that was focused on Indigenous peoples, particularly in Canada. You know, U.S. and Canada had a sort of a similar relationship with their Indigenous people, the First Peoples, the First Nations. We tried to make them white instead of understanding who they were. And we both the U.S. and Canada had residential schools where we took children from their families, sent them across the country or way far away to go to residential schools, and we cut their hair and we changed them into Western clothes, and tried to, as one founder of the residential school movement put it, take the Indian out of the child. Well, Canada our schools closed, I don't know when, it was 1940 or 50. Canada schools didn't really wind up until the early 90s. But they have apologized as a government, as a nation, have paid some reparations, and they have done an enormous amount of work toward allowing the Indigenous peoples to recover their language and recover their traditions. And it's quite breathtaking. And that day we heard from Indigenous people from around the world. Africa, the Baltic states, Canada, United States, all over the place. And one of my favorites was this little tiny skinny guy. His name was Jim Dumont. He's a university professor, and he's also an elder of what is now called the Anishinaabe, which means good people. And they are. The Anishinaabe are a coalition of Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, Cree, and Algonquin First Peoples from around the Great Lakes region. And so I heard this story. It's the Anishinaabe creation story. And I decided I wanted to share it with you because it is our story. It is everyone's story. It is the creation story in just a little bit different language with a little bit different focus. And it's so beautiful and it was so moving to me. I want to share it with you because it speaks so much to this mistaken thinking we have that we're here by accident, sort of, that we're alone, that we've got to do this life all by ourselves. And it's also very much like these same ideas we teach here, which is really interesting. And I will ask you up front to please forgive the masculine pronouns. The Creator has no gender, we know that. And in fact, the original language of this story, there's no gender. But, European languages, including English, have gender, and it's also really hard to talk about spirit without anthropomorphizing it. So it becomes he. So here's the story. Gitche Manitou, who's the Great Spirit, Gitche Manitou, the Creator, was alone, thinking in the void when he beheld a vision. And in this dream he saw a vast sky filled with sun and stars and moon and earth. And then he saw earth closer, made of mountains and valleys and oceans and islands and lakes and plains and forests. And he saw trees and flowers and grasses and vegetables that would feed the animals. And he saw walking and flying and swimming creatures, and in this vision he saw the birth and the growth and the end of things. And at the same time other things lived on. He saw that amidst change there was constancy. There was this constancy of life through it all. And he heard at the same time stories and songs and laughter and wailing and weeping. And he saw wind and rain. He felt, reflected from his own being, love and hate and fear and courage and joy and sadness. And Gitche Manitou meditated on this vision. He wanted to understand what it meant, and he came to understand that his vision had to be fulfilled. He was to bring into being and existence what he had seen and heard and felt. And so he thought into being rock, water, fire, and wind. And into each one he breathed the breath of life. And on each he bestowed a certain power. Each one has its own essence and its own nature. It holds its own power, which becomes its soul spirit. From these four substances, rock, water, fire, and wind, Gitche Manitou created the physical world of sun and stars and moon and earth. To the sun, Gitche Manitou gave the powers of light and heat. To the earth, he gave growth and healing. To the waters, purity and renewal. To the wind, music and the breath of life itself. So on earth, Gitche Manitou thought into being mountains and valleys and plains and islands and oceans and lakes and bays and rivers. Everything was in its place, and it was so beautiful. And then Gitche Manitou made the plant kingdom. There were 4 kinds: grasses, trees, flowers, and vegetables. And to each he gave its own spirit of life, growth, healing, and beauty. And he placed each one where it would be most beneficial and where it would lend to earth the greatest beauty and harmony and order. And after plants, the Creator created the animal beings, conferring on each one special powers and natures. He created the 4-legged, the winged ones, and the swimmers. And he looked at his creation and he wept because it was so beautiful. But there was still something missing. Gitche Manitou meditated on this and realized there was no creature that could bounce the Creator's own thoughts back to him, who could echo the Creator's own thoughts back to him. That required a special kind of creature. One so like the Creator that it could think back to Gitche Manitou his own thoughts. So last of all, the Creator made humans. They're last in the order of creation, least in order of independence, because they rely on everything else on the planet for life. And weakest in bodily powers, humans were still given the greatest gift, the power to dream, the power to vision, the power to reflect back to God, God's own thoughts. So Gitche Manitou made man and woman and breathed into them these special gifts of dreaming and of creating with their thoughts beauty. And then he wept real tears of joy, because here finally were beings who could, unlike Gitche Manitou, could actually touch creation in their own flesh. Imagine being outside in the springtime and coming across the first ripe wild strawberry. Perfect, red, delicious, beautiful. And you pick it and you see its color and you smell its sweetness and you taste its deliciousness and imagine your joy at that moment. And then imagine the joy of the Creator, which is like that joy times 10,000. That is the joy the Creator receives when you and I, the Creator made flesh, touch the beauty of creation. Gitche Manitou had brought into existence his whole vision. He was filled with joy. He wept and wept and wept tears of joy, and everywhere one of those tears landed, it became a star. The Creator's joy made things even more beautiful. And then Gitche Manitou told the humans, I have given you everything you need, everything you'll ever need. The road is long, life is long enough to experience the beauty of this world. Now, according to the indigenous mind, everything in creation is inspirited. It has its own spirit, as the story tells us. Healing, growth, purification, music. Everything has its own spirit. Trees have spirits, rocks have spirits, plants have spirits, animals, everything. And so are we. And the Creator is overjoyed that we are here to touch creation in the flesh. So Gitche Manitou sent spirit helpers. They're not like ghosts or anything. They're the very spirit of the gifts he's giving. He sent these spirits to give as a gift to the human beings 7 great values by which to live, to help them touch the beauty of the world, to taste the first strawberries, to hear the music in the winds, to experience themselves as the Creator made flesh. And those 7 gifts were wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. Perhaps then that is the purpose of our lives. To live by these 7 great gifts: wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. And thereby to experience in every way we possibly can the beauty of this world, the beauty of this life, to experience ourselves as Creator made flesh. So after he told this story, Jim Dumont said quite jokingly, you know, when you're raised up with this story, when you're told from the time you're born until you're an adult that the Creator made you like itself with these special gifts so that it can experience creation through you, so that you can touch creation directly, and that the Creator is so overjoyed when you do. He said, when you grow up with that, it's hard to be humble. Here's what I think about that. I think if we really, really, really get that we are the Creator in flesh, that there's nothing else we could be, that we are this part of the Creator made so we can see beauty and color and look into each other's eyes and feel love and experience that first strawberry and smell the sweetness of the flowers and hear the music of the birds in the wind. When we really get that, humility comes naturally. At least it does for me, because when I'm faced with a situation, I often ask myself, I wonder what the God of love would do here. And then I try to find an honest answer. That may be the hard part, is finding the honest answer, because it requires me to remember that my human ego is not the biggest part of me. It's not the greatest part of me. And so I sort of have to nudge it aside and say, what would the God of love do in this situation? And then I try to do that. When our actions come from the deep sense of connectivity, of inextricable oneness with all that exists, from Mother Earth to the plants and trees and rocks and flowers and birds and animals and each other, how could we do anything other than celebrate, enjoy our oneness with all that is, and act from that? Now, the bones of this story, as you can tell, are not unique to the Anishinaabe. It's our story. It's every creation story in some form or another. But this oneness is the foundational teaching of our philosophy. It's also the most fundamental teaching of indigenous people everywhere, and they all spoke of it. It is the most basic thing we teach, and as a matter of fact, there was a session with new thought leaders. Michael Beckwith, our own Dr. Ken Gordon, Bishop Yvette Flunder, who is from the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. She calls herself a Metabapticostal. We are firmly affiliated with that Pentecostal branch. The senior minister from the Unity Chapel in Lee's Summit, and a couple of other people. They gave a beautiful, beautiful presentation. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that in a minute. But at the end, an indigenous woman stood up and said, you call it new thought, but we've been teaching it for thousands of years. And Michael Beckwith said, yes, you have. And the reason we call it new thought is because from where we come from this collective agreement that we've all been raised with, the thought that we are one with God is new, because we've been raised to see God as outside ourselves. So that's a new thought. And every time we see what we're thinking, our old thinking, we try to have a new thought. I thought that was a beautiful explanation of why we call it new thought. But it is not uniquely ours. It is sometimes called the perennial philosophy because it does appear all over the place throughout history. The story is central to the mystics and all the founders of all religions and spiritual teachers around the world. And that story is that all is one. That there's God and only God. And we're all part of it. That there's one life. There's this one energy that creates and maintains everything that exists. And that was one of the biggest messages of this whole week-long conference. And the other two were courage and hope. There were meetings on what's happening in the world. Heartbreaking stuff, right? We know that. There were meetings about war and violence and hatred. Heartbreaking. But the focus of every one of those meetings was hope. What good people, like you and me, do to make the world better. We heard from a woman in Afghanistan, little teeny tiny woman, who when the Taliban took over and closed the schools, started underground schools for children, women, for girls, and schooled 3,000 Afghani girls during that time, and now has all sorts of educational programs going on to prepare Afghani citizens, children, and women, because they weren't allowed to be educated, for life in the world. We heard from the man who started Smallholder Farmers Alliance in Haiti. You know, Haiti's an unusual island, but one of the things that's true is that only small farmers can raise the food that those people need. And so Smallholders Farmers Alliance is there to assist smallholder farmers in doing what they do. We heard from people who hold positions around the world in governments who are trying, sometimes in little ways, sometimes in big ways, just simply make sure that everybody has what they need in order to be who they came here to be. Food, shelter, water, clothing, work that means something, so that then they can give their gifts to the world. There are tens and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who are making the world a better place every day in ways like this. There are billions of us making the world a better place simply by being good people. And Ashinabi, the good people. So I came back with lots of hope and lots of understanding that courageous people like you make the world a better place. That the people who are courageous enough to say, I am going to see God in the eyes of everyone I run into today. Make the world a better place. That courageous people who say, I want to be part of this community of love. I want to be the presence of love wherever I go. Make the world a better place in giant ways. That was the message that I received. And it was couched in spiritual terms. And that's a focus on courage. Because this little ego part of us that I said was not the biggest part of who we are makes us afraid. And the spirit self, the much larger, stronger part of who we are, allows us to do what we do anyway, which is courage. We'll never be free of the fear as long as we're in this body. But spiritual depth allows us to do what we do anyway. It allows us to look into the eyes of someone we disagree with profoundly and say, God is there too. I see God there too. It allows us to look into the eyes of someone that maybe we have a real bee in our bonnet about and say, this too is an expression of the Creator. It allows us to look in, most importantly, the mirror and say, there is a child of God. This being I am looking at in the mirror and speaking to in this moment makes the Creator overjoyed simply by existing. We touch creation and the Creator is overjoyed. So the message I received was, yeah, we have to do our own work. We will always have to do our own work. And we have to rise up and live what we believe. We have to get out into the world and see the divine in everything. We have to walk and speak and act as the presence of love. It's time for us to do that. It's time for us to walk our talk. Go, Kenny! It's time for us to walk our talk and live out what we believe. And being reminded of that just really increased my hope, because I know that as we do that, which is now is the time. It's not sort of in the future. And it's when we start doing that, not if, because it's inevitable. You're here, so it's inevitable. The seeds get planted, and at some point, they burst into flower inside you, right? And me. When we do that, we will change the world as much as anyone, anywhere could. When we're the presence of love in everything we do, we're bringing the greatest power of the universe right there to wherever we are. When we rise and remember that we're the creator in flesh, touching directly the beauty and wonder of creation, there's no room for fear in us. It can't be there, right? There's no room for error or hatred or greed or gloom. There is only room for vision, for wonder, for joy, for love. So let's rise together now and walk out being the presence of Spirit wherever we go. The Spirit of love. Are you with me?
Yes.
Good. You can sit if you want. I'm going to pray, or you can stand. It's up to you. Let's pray together. And as we breathe, we just remember this amazing body we are given to move through this world in. As we breathe, we remember the spirit of life that has been breathed into us by the Holy One. As we breathe, we remember that everything breathes in its own way, that we are sharing together this life on earth with everything in creation. Even the soil has oxygen in it. Even the rocks, even the waters, the trees, the flowers, the birds, all of it breathes the same air. As we breathe, we remember that we are God in flesh. We are the Creator made manifest, here to see and delight in and touch and taste and hear and feel and love all this beautiful creation that is all around us. And as we go out from this place today and we see those glorious trees in their autumn finery, we remember that this is part of what we are here to experience. That we are given that precious gift of dream, of vision, of reflecting Spirit's thoughts back to it with gratitude, with joy, with honesty, with humility, with courage. All of those good qualities that were given to human beings by Spirit. And so we rise. We rise in saying yes. Yes to this call of soul that tells us, everywhere I look, I see the face of God. The rise of soul that tells us that love truly is the power that flows through our veins. And so I know that each one of us today makes the world a little bit better place simply by being present. And I give thanks for it. I give thanks for everyone who is part of this community of love and transformation. I give thanks for this amazing, beautiful life, for the gifts we have been given, for this path we walk together. And so in deep gratitude, I release these words knowing that they're already done. They are unfolding now as we speak. For, as the Anishinaabe remind us, we too have been given that gift of thinking and speaking into being our future. It is good. It is very good. And we let it be and we say together, and so it is. now have an opportunity to support the work of this community, which is all about expressing the love that we are in the world, finding opportunities to express it together and transforming ourselves and our world. So I invite you to take your gifts in your hands or in your heart if you give electronically, like I do, and affirm with me. I know the activity of abundance in my life.
I know the activity of abundance in my life.
And in this center.
And in this center.
I give and receive generously.
I give and receive generously.
From this everlasting flow of good.
From this everlasting flow of good.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Woo! I love that song. That's a good one. Let's see. You know, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Jane Robinson today. Not only does she continually make our space more beautiful in the social hall and at the front door there, but she's finally bringing into creation a vision we've had for a very long time. That we'd have like some nice round tables where we could sit in, groups around a table in the social hall and chat with each other instead of those bloody awful, impossible to move, heavy, ancient, old, rectangular tables. So Jane, I bow to your vision, your determination. It looks beautiful in there. Thank you very, very much. And now we can move them without having to wait till we get help and actually it's great. It's wonderful. So I really appreciate Jane and her continual service in just making the place look wonderful and festive and relevant to whatever's going on the calendar and in the world. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who made today possible. It's great to be with you today. Our ushers and greeters and practitioners and the Higher Mind Band, as always, y'all are awesome. And all of you for showing up, touching creation, and being as beautiful as you are. You're amazing. So let's stand up together, do our closing affirmation and our closing song, which is Holy Ground. Woo-hoo! So please, Pink Cataract?
Yeah, I should have picked Pink Cataract.
Oh, bad. Pink Cataract. I love it. All right, closing affirmation. I remember who I am.
I remember who I am.
All I do brings joy to me.
All I do brings joy to me.
To our world.
To our world.
And to the Creator.
And to the Creator.
I speak from love.
I speak from love.
I act from love.
I act from love.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a love-filled weekend, everybody. Week, everybody.
You too.